I got a segment here for you from the Gutfeld Show. Now, Gutfeld and his co-hosts are going to discuss these two articles that they read recently regarding Trump's administration. I will go into one of these articles in detail. The other one we don't need to talk about that much, but I'll explain that later on in this video. Now let's dive in.
Murder plummets. Fentanyl mysteriously drops. CJ. New crime data shows since Trump took office, murder rates are...
All right, let me read the headlines here that he's referring to. It says, New York Post, White House celebrates plummeting murder rates. Hey, that's pretty good. The Washington Post, the mysterious drop in fentanyl seizures on the U.S.-Mexico border. Well, sounds like Trump is doing a pretty good job then, doesn't it? Let's get into this clip and we'll see what's really going on here.
On track to become the lowest since 1960. Meanwhile, fentanyl seizures have also plummeted after Trump prioritized border security and began aggressively pursuing drug traffickers. But according to the Post, this drop in fentanyl smuggling is mysterious. Why is it mysterious?
Okay, I appreciate Gutfeld. I like his candor for the most part, although I do find his show fairly boring enough that it makes me fall asleep every single night. But did you read the article, Gutfeld? It tells you why in the article.
You know, there's nothing mysterious about this at all, because this is a direct result of President Trump's policies to actually enforce law and order and secure our southern border. It's not rocket science, but maybe actually it is rocket science to these people who don't even know what a woman is. You know, the complicated topics aren't really their thing. But God bless President Trump for finally standing up. Personally, I have seen far too many people in my generation who have fallen prey to the evil of fentanyl, and I thank God for a president who's fighting for my generation every single day.
Yeah, okay, again, did you read the article? Because it explains this in the article. Let me tell you what the article says. It says a lot of stuff about how we cannot figure out why there's a drop in seizures of fentanyl at the southern border. It says there's still plenty of fentanyl in the country. People are still buying fentanyl at an alarming rate and using it at an alarming rate. Okay, but we're not seeing any border interactions that would support the amount of fentanyl that we're seeing in the country. So, that being said, the only thing that you can say to kind of explain that away is they're making the fentanyl in this country, or they found another way to get through the border without border enforcement noticing. Or there is already a glut of fentanyl in the country and it's just being sold at now. But you would see, if that were the case, you would see a spike in the price, I imagine, because they would not be resupplying. So, I mean, the article's pretty thorough. I'll leave a link to it down in the comments, and I'm not going to be able to get you this clip. You're just going to have to try to find it. I recorded it off of the full segment. You can search the full segment. I don't remember what day this was. Looks like it was the 4th of June when they put this out. So try looking for the Gutfeld on the 4th of June, and you can get the original.
Kid's gonna go far, Greg.
And he's only 12.
Well, we keep calling him Webster in the back.
Y'all are the reason I keep getting ID'd. Like, come on now. It's not working.
You'll like it when you're older, when you finally reach 21.
Yeah.
Tyrus, what if the data was reversed? This would be all over the place.
Well, the only mystery is why are they allowed to be a paper anymore? Mm-hmm. I mean, this is fake propaganda news. They're once again trying to belittle this. There's a lot of families that are rejoicing and celebrating with a bitterness because this didn't need to happen to their family. Mm-hmm. You know, fentanyl was wiping out, it was the biggest serial killer in this country. There was more people that died from fentanyl from anything else. So mystery is just goes to show that they do not give a rat's ass about the American people or the people who have had to deal with having a drug addict in their house or have lost a family member or has lost, I mean, there was cases where someone was trying to get Ritalin or something to stay up for a test and died. Yeah. Or accidentally put their hands on something at a party. They didn't know what it was. And at one point they're looking like candy. Like it was a concentrated effort to attack our youth and our people who were having addicts and issues. And for that is criminal malpractice. It should have been a huge deal. It should be all we're talking about in the news right now. Mm-hmm. But because they will not give him, and he said it during that big speech where he had to kick the one ugly ass brother out, I forget what his damn name is. Yeah. Had a cane but skipped out, like what fake ass. But he said, I could cure cancer. Yeah. And you would say, well, you didn't cure leukemia. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, this is true. I mean, the TDS is real. I'm not saying that there isn't TDS. I'm not saying that that there aren't problems with addiction in this country. I studied addiction and why it is what it is, et cetera, for 5 years. I used to say 3 years. I apologize if you listened to my older videos where I said 3 years. I went back and I checked my journals because I journaled that whole time, and it was a 5-year period, almost a 5-year period. So, yeah, it's your fault. An addict's going to find a way to do something. It's your fault. It's not the drug's fault. And Tyrus sounds like he's blaming the drug here. Like, yeah, it's terrible. This drug is terrible, and it hurts people, and it should not be coming into our country at all, period. But you choose to use the drug. It doesn't just jump into your mouth.
They are making our country safe again. That should be the most important thing. It had nothing to do with politics. As if anyone in that so-called newspaper has a family member who's had to deal with fentanyl or fentanyl poisoning, they should be throwing praises right now. This should be a Nobel Peace type situation. You reduce the murder rate. You're getting drugs out of our country. What is greater than that?
Yeah. No. Kennedy, the young man from Different Strokes over here.
Yes. What you talking about, CJ?
He makes a good point. There's something about how is it that Democrats don't understand deterrence? Like it goes even back to the gym thing, that if you work out, you build muscle. They don't understand.
Yeah, it could very well be the deterrent factor that Trump said, yeah, we're going to shut this down. And so they stopped coming. They stopped their commercial base. They make a lot of money off of illegal drugs, right? But again, this doesn't explain why fentanyl use has not dropped. If it explained why fentanyl use in the country has dropped, then you could say, yeah, Trump's policies at the border did something. That they don't have an explanation for why the fentanyl use hasn't dropped. So it's weird. And maybe this is all just because it's fresh and new. Like I said, maybe there's just a glut of fentanyl in the country still. But again, we would see a spike in the cost, I would think. I don't know. I don't deal drugs, guys. I don't know.
Cause and effect, and which is the case with deterrence.
Well, they also didn't understand that the reason so many people were dying from fentanyl was because they didn't know what was in what they were taking. And that didn't seem to be a very big issue for people. And, as someone who's always come down on the side of we should legalize things, and the reason is not because I want people to take more drugs, but because I want people to know what's in their drugs or, whatever it is. That's why we don't have moonshine as readily available as we used to, although you can still find some in Appalachia. My daughter goes to college
Also
there.
at Kudlow's.
Or Dagan McDowell's purse.
Yeah, Dagan definitely knows some moonshine. She knows more about moonshine than Anthony Fauci does about fleecing taxpayers for millions of dollars to enrich himself with a bunch of false claims. But yes, there is something to be said for a much smarter, more comprehensive policy. And the reason there aren't drugs coming over the border is because the cartels know that they can no longer get drugs over the border. And, yes, this stupid.
I don't know about that. I mean, cartels can get drugs over they build trebuchets to launch drugs over the border. They dig tunnels that are miles long to get drugs over the border. They build submarines and boats and stuff to get drugs into the country. So I don't know about that. They find a way, right? But then at the same time, if we've shut the border down, where are the drugs coming from? So my guess is that there's an underground manufacturing ring somewhere in the United States that we have not yet discovered. I don't know. It just seems to be the most plausible explanation if the border is shut down. The next most plausible explanation is that, no, the border is not really shut down. We just think it is. Or perhaps, yes, the Washington Post is just lying about all this. It's possible.
Author may be right. There may be tunnels, there may be time machines, there may be all sorts of ways that they're figuring out to get drugs into this country. But they should be delighted that fewer people are dying from overdoses.
Yes.
I have one friend, a childhood friend, who has lost 3 family members in 3 totally separate ways to fentanyl overdoses. And sadly, 2 of them were kids who had never taken drugs in their life.
Wow.
And that's what scares the living out of me sending my daughter to college.
Yeah.
Is that's when you make some of the worst choices, and no matter what you tell your kids, you're not with them when they're at school.
Right.
And it's like that stuff is everywhere. And I don't know if they've got test strips and Narcan and everything else. I hope to God they do, but I thank God that these numbers are coming down.
Yeah. All right. Brian, murders are down.
Yes.
Fentanyl seizures are down.
Yes.
Yet you are still here.
I know, that's so terrible.
What? 2 out of 3.
So after Jake Tapper's book comes out, I just said to myself, I wonder if there's going to be a portion of the media that'll begin to point out when things go well for Trump. And I know you laugh. And then you see the story. It's a mystery why the fentanyl is down. It would be 1,700 pounds at this time last year. Now it's 746. They also speculate on the fentanyl. Perhaps.
So it's like 40% of what it was. Is that right? Yeah, I think it's about 40% of what it was, 30-some% of what it was. But yeah, that's a huge drop, but that's not zero. So still coming across the border probably without us knowing it somehow.
They also speculate on the fentanyl. Perhaps it's mixed with heroin, which makes it not quite as strong. Or they say to people, they say that perhaps there's less getting into our country. They want to speculate that maybe it has something to do with the border, but they also say there's been budget cuts at the FDA. And how come you can cut the budget and still have less people die of it? This would be a perfect opportunity if you want credibility.
So he's making it sound like it's the reporters at the Washington Post that are making these claims, but they're quoting experts on the subject matter in the article. Just you read the articles. It's long, not real long, but it's long enough that and boring enough that I wasn't going to share it on the channel. We'll talk about the other one that they don't really even talk about here. But
you want to go criticize a big, beautiful bill? Okay. At the same time, just go one thing about President Trump. The border has been shut down in a way we didn't think was possible. You could actually don't even need the.
I thought it was possible. I knew it was possible. But the border could be shut down even more so than it is right now. All you have to do is obey the freaking law.
Wall right now. Yeah. Everyone's afraid to get in. And the thing that's crazy about fentanyl is you don't need to be an addict. Yeah. It's one and done. It's like, well, they made bad choices in their life. They drank and drove and they've been alcoholics. This is, I want to stay up and take a test and now I'm dead. One and done.
That's not with fentanyl. They cut fentanyl with horse tranquilizers so that it acts more slowly. That's why everybody's passing out. That's why you see them all the zombie walks here, which we can see right here. This is tranquilizers they put into the fentanyl so it works through your system more slowly. So they're not taking fentanyl to stay up. I don't know where he's getting that from. Maybe there's a different cut of fentanyl that people were using to stay up, but I've never heard that fentanyl was a stimulant. It just makes you feel euphoric. I don't know. I'm not an expert on this because fentanyl came out after I did all my work on addiction and stuff like that. Not that I didn't focus on the drugs anyway. I focused on the actual emotional parts of the addiction process.
And that's why I think that along with the pressure on China to stop with the precursors, he said you're getting hit with tariffs until you stop sending that stuff over to the cartels. They're out of precursors. Cartels seem to be out of money, and we have less fentanyl. That's a pretty good record.
It certainly is, Brian. All right. Up next.
Okay, let's take a look at this New York Post article. White House celebrates plummeting murder rates as levels dip below pre-COVID numbers. Yeah, okay. That's great. That's good news. Whose fault is that? Oh, it's you can despise Trump all you want to. I don't care. You can think he's the worst president ever. You can think he's the best president ever. That doesn't matter. This happened on his watch. I wonder why. Maybe it's not his fault, but people are so quick to blame him for all the bad stuff. What about the good stuff? He did this bad happen? Oh, that's his fault. Well, okay, this good happened, so this is his fault too. Washington. Nationwide murder rates are on course to plummet for the third year in a row, with one prominent analyst saying 2025 could see the lowest number of per capita killings on record. Now, you can, of course, point out that this is the third year in a row, so Biden had a hand in this too. Okay, we can blame Biden for this too. We can see the numbers going down here. It's 1, 2. It looks like it's been dropping it went up slightly here, but so this is 2023, it looks like. Maybe not, because this doesn't look like it's accurate to the year. Since President Trump took office, murder rates have plummeted across the entire United States. White House Press Secretary Carolyn Leavitt said in a statement on Tuesday. American families were promised that communities would be safer, and President Trump swiftly delivered by vocally being tough on crime, unequivocally backing law enforcement and standing firm on violent criminals being held to the fullest extent of the law. Yes, I agree with all that. If you want to stop something, hardline. This is what Israel is doing right now with Palestine. They are going in there and just exterminating everybody. You might not like it, but there's only so many times that somebody can poke you in the face with a pointy stick before you go, you know what? I'm bigger and stronger than you, or I have better weaponry than you do. I'm going to end this problem right now. If you ask them nicely, don't poke me in the face with a stick, and I got a gun, well, hey, they keep poking me in the face with a stick. Blam. Problem is solved. I'm not saying that that's okay, but what else can you do? When you got to solve a problem, you solve it. According to the FBI, 2014 saw the lowest murder rate dating back to 1960, with 4.46 killings per 100,000 Americans. In 2023, the most recent year for which FBI statistics are available, the murder rate dropped to 5.75 per 100,000 from a recent high of 6.83 per 100,000 in 2020, a year that saw the onset of COVID-19 pandemic as well as widespread racial unrest. Yeah, that was a stressful time for people in the country. A lot of people were freaking out. You know, you had the lockdown, so people couldn't do the things that necessarily they wanted to do. People were not getting laid as often, I'm sure, because, you know, you weren't allowed to go out and meet people. So they went out and acted aggressively in other ways. So in 2024, according to the Real-Time Crime Index, a database maintained by Datalytics, which compiles reports from more than 400 local agencies, the homicide rate dipped to 4.97 per 100,000, below the official FBI rate in both 2018 and 2019. In the first 3 months of this year, the index shows the number of murders has dropped by a further 21.6% from the same period in 2024. It's fairly clear that a decline in the direction we are currently seeing would safely give 2025 the title of the lowest U.S. murder rate ever recorded. Independent analyst Jeff Asher wrote on May 12th Substack post. Trump took office vowing to crack down on crime, especially crime committed by illegal immigrants. They wrote migrants here, but of course they got to, you know, spread the woke mind virus. They're not immigrants. They're not aliens. They're migrants. And celebrate law enforcement officials for putting wrongdoers behind bars. In April, officials lined the White House lawn with 100 mugshots of deported illegal aliens, along with lists of the crimes they were accused of committing. Good policy fosters good outcomes, FBI spokesperson Ben Williamson said Tuesday. Under this administration's leadership, our federal law enforcement teams are receiving the tools and support they need to crush violent crime and keep the American people safe. And that's exactly what they're doing. We have much more to do, but let good cops be cops, and the results will follow. The nationwide decline is being reflected in some of America's largest cities. In New York, year-to-date murder rates have dropped 28.2%. The local stats show the city's 112 murders in the first 5 months of this year reflect a 34.1% drop from the same point in 2023, a 41.4% dip from 2010. And an eye-popping 85.7% drop from this point in 1993. Yeah, I remember back in those days when what we knew about New York was it was like crime everywhere. Things changed largely because, like, if you go to New York now, there's people working all hours of the day and night. So there's just people on the streets that are just law-abiding citizens going around. So it's harder to get away with these things. You might say it's easier because there's more opportunities, but people are cautious about doing these things. Most people are not. They've been conditioned to not do these things, even if they are psychopaths or sociopaths. They're still conditioned not to act out in this way to commit crimes. So the more eyes that are on a person, then the less likely they are to do something that is untoward. And here we go. Now, Philadelphia, which consistently ranks as among the deadliest cities in America, reported a 14.7% dip in year-to-date murder numbers. That's great. The pattern is repeating in Chicago, a 23% decline year-to-date, Baltimore, 24%, and New Orleans, 25%. That's the end of the article. So this is good news. And they're blaming Donald Trump for it. Okay, we can blame him for it, but it looks like it got started under Biden's watch, so let's blame Biden too. I'm not above putting blame where blame is due for whoever's responsible for it. So if all you TDSers out there who despise me with a burning passion because I say the things that I say on my channel, the blame falls wherever it falls. If Trump screws up the country, then Trump screws up the country. If Biden screws up the country, then Biden screws up the country. And Biden did screw up the country pretty badly. I'm surprised that the violent crime rates were dropping here. At least this type of violent crime was dropping under Biden's watch because things were just getting out of hand there. It seemed like everywhere we looked, there was another problem popping up. But hey, it's been going on for 3 years now. So Biden had a hand in it, apparently. I don't blame Biden for any of this, honestly. I don't think that he had a hand for it at all. I think that human beings just came together and realized, hey, look, we cannot be woke because being woke says defund the police. And this is stupid. We're not doing this anymore. I don't think it was Biden's fault, other than we could say Biden was going to perpetuate this problem because Biden wanted to perpetuate the defund the police idea. And I was totally against it because I know what happens when you defund the police. You get more crime. I'm not stupid. I know how the United States operates. When there aren't cops around, you see crime being committed a lot. It's blatantly obvious. Like out here, people drive like maniacs out here in SoCal. And it's a lack of respect for other drivers is what the problem is. It's not that they drive fast. It's not that they drive recklessly. They do drive recklessly, but it's that they're being disrespectful. They don't even care that they're cutting you off, that they're forcing you to change lanes because they want to force their way into different spaces and on the road and stuff. But I've seen it happen where people are driving aggressively and getting in people's way, cutting people off, tailgating and all that stuff. And then they'll get off onto another road and there's a cop there. And then all of a sudden they know how to drive. And it's like, yeah, you know what you're doing. You're stupid and you're an asshole. Stop it. Anyway, thank you all for watching. I do appreciate it. Please remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Make sure that you're still subscribed. YouTube does unsubscribe people. You can find me on Rumble and on Twitter. I will see you in the next video.